This is the news in brief from the United Nations. Warring parties in Yemen are urged to renew their historic truce, which has largely held for nearly 4 months, the UN Special Envoy for the country, Hans Grunberg, said on Thursday. The truce will expire on 2 August, and the government and Houthi rebels must rise to the occasion and not miss this opportunity, he said. The special envoy has intensified his engagement towards expanding and extending the agreement, which was first announced in April, initially for just 2 months. It was extended in June for an additional 2 months, marking the longest period of relative calm in more than 7 years of war in Yemen, with a significant decrease in civilian casualties. Mr. Grunberg said despite shortcomings in implementation, the truce has been transformational for the country. An extended and expanded truce will increase the benefits to the Yemeni people, he said, adding that ultimately the aim is to move toward a political settlement that comprehensively ends the conflict. More than 14,000 cases of monkeypox have now been reported across 71 countries, the head of the World Health Organization, WHO, said on Thursday in remarks to an expert group that is monitoring the evolution of the outbreak. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said, while there has been an apparent declining trend in some countries, others are still seeing an increase, with 6 countries reporting their first cases last week. The vast majority of monkeypox cases continue to be reported among men who have sex with men. Tedros said this represents both an opportunity for targeted public health interventions, but also presents challenges because of life-threatening discrimination in some countries. He warned of the very real concern that men who have sex with men could be stigmatized or blamed for the outbreak, thus making it much harder to track and stop infections. In more health news, WHO has welcomed historic funding to expand the rollout of the world's first malaria vaccine in Africa. Countries on the continent can apply for funding from Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, which has allocated $160 million over the next 3 years to support increased access to the life-saving RTSS vaccine. WHO said malaria remains a primary cause of childhood illness and death in sub-Saharan Africa. In 2020, nearly 500,000 boys and girls died from the disease, or 1 child every minute. The vaccine was first introduced 3 years ago in a pilot program in 3 countries, Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi. So far, roughly 1.3 million children have been inoculated. Deanne Penn, UN News.
This is the news in brief from the United Nations. From the Amazon to the Andes and the snowy depths of Patagonia, extreme weather and climate change are causing mega drought, dangerous rainfall, deforestation, and glacier melt across the Latin America and the Caribbean region, according to a UN report published on Friday. In its State of the Climate in Latin America and the Caribbean 2021, the World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, highlights the far-reaching repercussions for ecosystems, food and water security, human health, and poverty. The report shows that rainfall-related hazards have displaced people, taken hundreds of lives, and severely damaged crop production and infrastructure. According to the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, worsening climate change is not only impacting biodiversity, but also stalling decades of progress against poverty, food insecurity, and the reduction of inequality in the region. Over 50 million people in Eastern Africa will face acute food insecurity this year, according to a new study backed by the World Food Programme and Food and Agriculture Organization. Issued by the region's Intergovernmental Authority on Development, the IGAD Regional Focus on Food Crises report sounded the alarm over escalating food insecurity and malnutrition in Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, South Sudan, and Sudan. 4 failed consecutive rainy seasons and a climatic event not seen since the beginning of the satellite era has caused the dire situation, said the FAO's Chimimba David Fury. And a combination of climate extremes, conflict, and macroeconomic challenges make it nearly impossible to cope with the multiple shocks. WFP Regional Director for Eastern Africa, Michael Dunford, warned of a very real risk of famine. He stressed the need to start preparing and responding to the increasingly inevitable disruptions that climate change will cause in the future. At least 5 children were reportedly killed and 9 injured in southwest Syria early on Friday morning during an attack in the last rebel-held area of the country. UNICEF's regional director for the Middle East and North Africa, Adel Khoder, said it was a devastating reminder that the war on children is not over. Children in the region and across the country keep paying the heaviest price of the ongoing violence, she added. Last year, 70% of grave violations recorded against children in Syria occurred in the northwest. UNICEF repeated to all parties involved in the brutal civil war that children must never be targeted. They should be protected at all times wherever they are, Ms. Carter spelled out. Liz Scafidi, UN News.
This is the news in brief from the United Nations. The rapidly spreading monkeypox outbreak can be stopped, an official from the World Health Organization said on Tuesday. It comes after WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus on Saturday declared the spread of the virus to be a public health emergency of international concern, the organization's highest level of alert. Through this, WHO hopes to enhance the coordination and cooperation of countries and all stakeholders, as well as global solidarity. Dr. Rosamund Lewis, WHO technical lead on monkeypox, said,
"We do at this moment still believe that this outbreak of monkeypox can be stopped with the right strategies in the right groups, but time is going by and we all need to pull together to make that happen. Because at the moment, the outbreak is still concentrated in groups of men who have sex with men in some countries, but that is not the case everywhere. It is really important to appreciate also that stigma and discrimination can be very damaging and as dangerous as any virus itself.
Dr. Lewis said that WHO had assessed the risk of monkeypox in the European region as high and at the global level as moderate. With other regions not as severely affected, the declaration of a public health emergency was necessary to ensure the outbreak was stopped as soon as possible, she added. This year, there have been more than 16,000 confirmed cases of monkeypox in more than 75 countries. Dr. Lewis said the real number was probably higher. Amid continuing hopes that the first shipments of stranded grain could leave Ukraine's Black Sea ports within days, 50 tons of different humanitarian supplies, initially destined for another hard-hit location, have been delivered to the severely affected government-controlled settlement of Stepnohursk. Due to the ongoing hostilities, UN and humanitarian partners have been unable to deliver any assistance to non-government-controlled areas since the start of the war. In this instance, the town of Polohy could not be reached. According to the humanitarian coordinator for Ukraine, Osnat Lubrani, medicine, food, blankets and supplies for children were delivered to Stepnohursk and will also be sent to the neighbouring town of Primorsk. About 5,000 people in urgent need will benefit from the items delivered. Ms. Lubrani called on all the parties to the conflict to allow life-saving aid to reach those most in need. The UN Stabilisation Mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, MONUSCO, has strongly denounced an attack on its headquarters in Goma on Monday. Protesters stormed the UN base in the eastern Congolese city, demanding the departure of peacekeepers from the region. According to MONUSCO, the attack was carried out by a group of looters on the sidelines of the demonstration. Hundreds of people blocked roads before storming the mission in Goma, as well as a logistics base on the outskirts of the city. Protesters smashed windows and looted computers, furniture and other valuables from the headquarters. Acting head of the mission, Kashing Liang, called the violence not only unacceptable but completely counterproductive, calling for restraint. He pointed out that MONUSCO supports the Congolese authorities in protecting civilians against armed groups and in its efforts to restore state authority. Chaos and confusion or division will not make progress towards stabilisation and peace, he added. Over 120 armed groups roam the volatile region, and resurgent clashes between local troops and the M23 rebel group in eastern Congo have displaced thousands of people, with civilian massacres common. Katie Dartford, UN News.
This is the news in brief from the United Nations. The UN Secretary-General has strongly condemned as a possible war crime the attack on the organisation's peacekeepers in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, which claimed the lives of 3 soldiers on Tuesday. In addition to the deaths of 2 police officers from India and a blue helmet from Morocco, an Egyptian police worker was also injured when a violent demonstration erupted at the UN missions base in Butembo, North Kivu province. Violence against multiple United Nations bases in North Kivu has increased in recent days. Video footage has shown individuals and groups forcing their way in before looting and setting fire to UN residences. In a statement, UN Chief Antonio Guterres said that he regretted the loss of life of demonstrators linked to these events. He also affirmed that the UN mission in DRC, which is known as MONUSCO, remained committed to work with the authorities to investigate these incidents. Turkey is at a crossroads on women's rights which could set back efforts to tackle gender-based violence in the country, a top UN-appointed independent rights expert said on Wednesday. The warning from UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women and Girls, Reem Al-Salem, follows President Recep Erdogan's announcement in March that Turkey was pulling out of key international rights mechanisms for tackling the problem on the 1st of July. These included the Council of Europe Convention on Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence, also known as the Istanbul Convention, so named as Turkey was first to sign the agreement in 2011. The Special Rapporteur said that almost all stakeholders she'd met in Turkey unequivocally recognised the importance of the Convention in combating violence against women and girls, before insisting that it was intrinsically linked to Turkey's identity, aspirations and its destined role and standing regionally and beyond. For these reasons, the independent rights expert who reports to the Human Rights Council urged Turkey to reconsider its decision to pull out of the Istanbul Convention and continue to uphold its other international rights obligations. A full 90% of the Earth's precious topsoil is likely to be at risk by 2050. That's according to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. In a bid to protect soil globally and help farmers, the FAO warned on Wednesday that the equivalent of one soccer pitch of earth erodes every 5 seconds. It also takes around 1,000 years to create just a few centimetres of topsoil, and to help land restoration, the UN agency urged greater action by countries and partners who've signed up to the Global Soil Partnership over the last decade. The 5 key actions that FAO has called for include recarbonising land, which makes soils healthier by increasing the amount of organic matter they contain. Costa Rica and Mexico have signed up for the scheme and trained farmers in the use of best practices, which include using so-called cover crops that prevent erosion, along with crop rotation and tree planting. Daniel Johnson, UN News.